I'm standing at my kitchen window in Albuquerque, hands wrapped around a coffee mug, when I hear my daughter-in-law's laugh cut through the September air. That sharp, performative sound she makes when she wants to impress someone. She's by the fence, talking to Linda Morrison from 2 doors down. I'm not trying to eavesdrop. The window's open and sound carries in the desert. But then I hear my name. Honestly, Linda, she's just dead weight. Completely useless. I freeze. All she does is shuffle around like a ghost. I swear, I can't wait until we can finally leave this place. It's suffocating. Linda murmurs something I can't make out. Daniel won't say it, but I know he feels the same way. She's his mother, so he's stuck being nice. But me? I'm counting the days. That laugh again, like glass breaking. I'm Rita Navarro, 74 years old. And for 18 months, I've opened my home to my son Daniel and his wife Vanessa, after they lost everything. Their business, their money, their apartment in Phoenix. 18 months of cooking meals they never thank me for. 18 months of cleaning up after Vanessa's friends who treat my house like a free venue. 18 months of biting my tongue while she uses my groceries, my electricity, my patience, and gives nothing back except contempt. Not a cent. Not one single cent in all that time. I stand there at the window, tea pitcher in my hand, listening to Vanessa tell a neighbor that I'm worthless, that my only purpose is giving her life meaning, that at least having them here gives me something to do. And something inside me goes very, very still. I walk to my bedroom, past the small altar where my late husband Miguel's photo sits surrounded by candles, past the worn furniture we bought together 40 years ago, past the life I've built in this house, and I make a phone call. The next morning, at exactly 8 a.m., a moving truck pulls up to my house. The diesel engine is loud enough to wake the entire street. I see Mrs. Chen peek through her curtains. I see Linda Morrison step onto her porch, coffee mug in hand, eyes wide with curiosity. I open my front door before the movers can knock. 2 men stand there, one older with a gray beard, one younger and quiet. The older one checks his clipboard. Ma'am, we're here regarding an eviction assistance. The resident has 2 hours to vacate the premises. Yes, I say calmly. Guest bedroom, second door on the right. That's when I hear it. Fast footsteps down the hallway. Vanessa appears in her silk pajamas, hair a mess, face still creased from the pillow. What the hell is going on? I turn to face her. For 18 months, I've looked away, looked down, made myself invisible in my own home. Not anymore. Good morning, Vanessa. These gentlemen are here to help you pack. You have 2 hours to remove your belongings from my house. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. You can't. This is insane, Daniel. Daniel left for work an hour ago. But we have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore. I hold up the legal document my lawyer prepared, a formal notice of termination. Everything is in order. Everything is legal. This is my house, my name on the deed, my right to reclaim my space. Dead weight, I say quietly. That's what you called me yesterday, to Linda Morrison. By the fence, I heard every word. The color drains from her face. For 18 months, I've given you everything. My home, my food, my patience, my grace. I never asked for rent. Never asked for much of anything except basic respect. And you couldn't even give me that. Rita, please? You have 2 hours. But here's what I don't know yet. Here's what's about to unfold. My son Daniel will come home tonight to find his wife gone and his mother waiting with the truth he's been avoiding for years. The neighborhood will explode with gossip, some supporting me, some calling me cruel. Vanessa's mother will show up at my door with threats and accusations. My own daughter Sophia will call me cold and selfish for destroying Daniel's marriage. And my son, my gentle, kind, exhausted son, will have to choose between defending the woman who called his mother worthless and finally admitting the truth about his dying marriage. I'll lose friendships, face judgment from people I've known for decades, watch my family fracture in ways I never imagined. But I'll also learn something I should have known all along, that mercy doesn't mean accepting abuse. That turning the other cheek doesn't mean letting someone use your face as a punching bag. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for the people you love is establish a boundary and refuse to cross it. They say blood is thicker than water. But what they don't tell you is that respect is thicker than blood. I'm about to find out what that costs, and whether my son will ever forgive me for choosing myself. Standing in my doorway, watching the movers enter my house while Vanessa's protests echo down the hallway and neighbors gather on their porches to watch, I feel something I haven't felt in 18 months. peace. Or maybe it's just the calm before the storm. Either way, there's no going back now. The moving truck is here. The clock is ticking. And I'm finally done being dead weight in my own life. Let them judge. Let them whisper. Let them choose sides. I'm choosing me. What happens when kindness becomes martyrdom? When family becomes burden? When the weight of grace finally breaks you? This is the story of one woman's decision to reclaim her life, and the devastating ripples that follow. I learned to make coffee the way Miguel liked it, strong enough to strip paint, sweet enough to forgive the bitterness. Even now, 16 years after burying him at Santa Barbara Cemetery, I still make it that way every morning. Muscle memory, I suppose. Or maybe it's my small act of keeping him alive, one cup at a time. The kitchen window faces east, and if I time it right, 5:47 a.m. to be exact, I can watch the sun break over the Sandia Mountains and turn the sky that particular shade of orange that only exists in New Mexico. It's the color of hope, Miguel used to say, the color of new beginnings. This morning, though, as I stood at that window with my hands wrapped around my chipped ceramic mug, the one Daniel made me in 8th grade art class, all I could think about was endings. The house was quiet in that heavy way that comes before a storm. I could hear the ancient evaporative cooler humming on the roof, the sound of Mrs. Chen's sprinklers next door clicking on at precisely 6:00 a.m., like they had for the past 20 years. Normal sounds. Comforting sounds. The kind of sounds that make you believe everything is fine, even when it isn't. My home is small by American standards. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, about 1,400 square feet of territorial-style adobe that Miguel and I bought in 1978 for $32,000. Now the real estate agents say it's worth $500,000, which seems absurd for a house with cracks in the plaster and original windows that rattle when the wind picks up. But it's mine. Every creaky floorboard, every water stain on the ceiling, every coat of paint I've applied myself over the decades. Mine. The living room still has Miguel's old recliner, burnt orange fabric worn smooth on the armrest where he'd sit watching Wheel of Fortune every evening. I can't bring myself to get rid of it, even though it takes up space and doesn't match the cream-colored sofa I bought 5 years ago. My daughter Sophia keeps telling me I should redecorate, modernize, maybe knock down a wall and create an open concept. But I like my walls. I like my compartments. I like knowing where one room ends and another begins. The hallway leading to the bedrooms is narrow and lined with photographs. Daniel's high school graduation, Sophia's wedding, my youngest Tommy in his army uniform before his first deployment. And there, on a small wooden table beneath a framed image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, sits Miguel's photo surrounded by candles. I light one every Sunday after Mass. Sometimes I talk to him. Mostly I just stand there, feeling his presence the way you feel sunshine through a window. I was standing there that Thursday morning, coffee in hand, when I heard Vanessa's alarm go off in the guest bedroom. A cheerful pop song, something about living your best life. The irony wasn't lost on me. 18 months. That's how long they'd been here. I remember the day Daniel called. It was a Tuesday in March, unseasonably cold for Albuquerque. I'd just gotten home from morning mass at San Felipe de Neri, still had my good shawl on, when my phone rang. "Mom," his voice sounded like gravel. "We need help." Daniel had always been my gentle one. While Sophia blazed through life with opinions and ambitions, and Tommy followed rules like they were gospel, Daniel was the one who brought home injured birds and cried during Disney movies. He saw the good in everyone, which made him easy to love and easier to hurt. "What happened, mijo?" He told me everything in that rushed, humiliated way people do when they're confessing failure. The construction company he'd started with his college roommate had collapsed after a subcontractor sued them over a botched job in Scottsdale. Daniel had signed a personal guarantee he didn't fully understand. They'd drained their savings fighting the lawsuit, lost anyway, and now creditors were circling. Vanessa's job at a marketing firm had been eliminated in corporate restructuring. They were 3 months behind on rent. The landlord was filing for eviction. "We just need a place to land, Mom. Maybe 3 months while I find steady work and Vanessa gets back on her feet. I know it's asking a lot." "You come home," I interrupted. "Both of you. I'll have the room ready." I heard him exhale, a sound like a drowning man breaking the surface. "Thank you. God, Mom, thank you." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, looking at the mountains through the window. Miguel would have done the same thing, opened the door without hesitation. That's who we were. That's who we raised our children to be. You help family. You give without counting the cost. You turn the other cheek, offer your cloak, walk the extra mile. I spent that week preparing. I cleared out the guest bedroom, which had become a storage space for old tax documents and Sophia's wedding decorations. I washed the curtains, swept the corners, put fresh shelf paper in the closet. I went to Smith's and filled the cart with food I thought they'd like. Organic vegetables, fancy bread, those expensive crackers Vanessa had mentioned once. I even bought new towels, soft ones in navy blue. When they arrived on a Sunday afternoon, the truck Daniel borrowed was packed tight with everything they'd managed to salvage. I stood on the front porch, shading my eyes against the sun, watching my son's shoulders slump under the weight of cardboard boxes labeled kitchen and bedroom in Vanessa's neat handwriting. "Hi, Mom." Daniel hugged me hard, and I could feel how much thinner he'd gotten. Vanessa emerged from the passenger side, wearing oversized sunglasses and a white linen shirt that probably cost more than my monthly water bill. She gave me a brief, tight smile. "Rita, thank you for this. Really. Your family," I said simply. "Come on, let me show you the room." Over the next few hours, I helped them unpack while trying not to notice the tension between them. The way Vanessa directed Daniel where to put things without saying please. The way he flinched slightly when she snapped at him for setting a box down wrong. The way neither of them really looked at each other. That first evening, I made pozole, Miguel's recipe, the one that takes all day and fills the house with the smell of pork and hominy and red chile. We sat at my small dining table, the three of us, and I tried to make conversation. "Daniel, how's your back? You were lifting a lot today." "It's fine, Mom." He spooned pozole into his mouth mechanically. "Vanessa, I wasn't sure what you liked, so I just made what I know. If there's anything you need, any foods you prefer." "This is fine." She picked at a piece of pork, then set down her spoon. "Actually, Rita, I'm not super hungry. Long day. Do you mind if I just go lie down?" "Of course not." I watched her leave, heard the guest room door close with a definitive click. Daniel and I sat in silence for a moment. Then he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "She's just overwhelmed. It's been really hard on her." "I know, mijo. She's not used to this." He gestured vaguely at the house, and I understood what he meant. Vanessa came from money, real money, the kind that meant private schools and family vacation homes in Carmel. Her parents had helped them with the down payment on their Phoenix condo, the one they'd had to sell at a loss. This house, with its worn furniture and decades-old appliances, must have felt like poverty to her. "It's okay," I told Daniel. "We'll figure it out." He nodded, but his eyes looked ancient. The first month wasn't terrible. Daniel threw himself into job hunting, went out early for interviews, came back late from day labor gigs. Vanessa spent most of her time in the guest bedroom with the door closed, emerging only for coffee or to sit in the backyard making phone calls. I gave them space. I kept the house clean, cooked meals, tried to be invisible. I noticed small things, though. The way Vanessa would leave her coffee mug on the counter, 2 inches from the sink, as if that distance absolved her from washing it. The way she'd use my laptop without asking to apply for jobs, leaving it open on the kitchen table with dozens of tabs running, draining the battery. The way she'd sigh, loudly, pointedly, whenever I turned on the television in my own living room. But I told myself these were small things. Stress manifests in strange ways. She was grieving the life she'd lost. I should be patient. I should be understanding. I should be charitable. Father Gonzalez had given a homily 2 weeks before they arrived about the parable of the Good Samaritan. "We are called to help without judgment," he'd said, his voice echoing through the old church. "To give without expecting return. To love even when it's inconvenient." So I loved, or I tried to. By month 3, patterns had solidified into routines. Daniel worked 6 days a week for a contractor friend who'd hired him out of pity. Vanessa had stopped pretending to job hunt and instead spent her days networking and building her brand, which seemed to involve photographing herself in my backyard for Instagram and talking on the phone about opportunities that never materialized. I started noticing the groceries disappearing faster than usual, the organic snacks Vanessa liked, the expensive yogurt, the bottles of wine that appeared in my fridge. Her friends would bring them over, and they'd sit in the backyard laughing while I washed their abandoned glasses the next morning. One evening, I found Vanessa in the kitchen making herself a smoothie with the blender at full volume. 9:30 p.m., right when I usually wound down with a cup of tea and the evening news. "Oh, sorry," she said when she noticed me, though she didn't turn down the volume. "I'm on this cleanse." Very specific timing for the ingredients. That's fine, I said, even though it wasn't. She poured the smoothie into a glass, leaving the blender dirty in the sink. You know, Rita, you should try something like this. It's really good for energy at your age. At my age. As if 74 meant I was already halfway to the grave. I'll stick with my tea, I said gently. She shrugged. Suit yourself. Then she was gone, back to the guest bedroom, door closed. I washed the blender, wiped down the counter she'd splattered with spinach and protein powder, made my tea, sat at the table in the quiet house and wondered how long this would go on. Month 6 brought a new development. Vanessa started inviting people over. The first time, I came home from afternoon mass to find 3 women I didn't recognize sitting on my back patio, drinking iced coffee and laughing at something on someone's phone. Vanessa was holding court, animated in a way I never saw when it was just the 3 of us. Oh, Rita! She waved me over like I was a guest in my own home. This is Amber, Jessica, and Tara. We're in the same networking group. Nice to meet you, I said, suddenly aware of my church clothes, my sensible shoes, my gray hair pulled back in its usual bun. Your house is so cute. One of them, Jessica, I think, said with that bright, condescending enthusiasm people use when they mean the opposite. Very authentic. Thank you. I excused myself and went inside, feeling displaced. This became a regular occurrence. Vanessa would text me, never ask, just inform, that she was having people over. I'd come home to find strangers in my space, using my bathroom, eating food I'd bought. Once I found someone's wet bathing suit draped over my shower rod. Another time, a wine glass shattered on my patio, and no one mentioned it. I found the pieces myself the next morning, glittering in the early light like tiny accusations. Daniel was never home for these gatherings. He worked late, came back exhausted, microwaved whatever I'd left covered on the stove. We'd sit together sometimes after Vanessa had gone to bed, and he'd tell me about his day. The houses he was framing, the boss who reminded him of his father, the way his hands ached by evening. You're working too hard, mijo. Got to build back up, Mom. Got to get us out of here and into our own place again. There's no rush, I'd say, even though there was. He'd look at me with those sad, grateful eyes. I don't know what we would have done without you. I'd pat his hand. Family takes care of family. But late at night, lying in my bed listening to Vanessa's television through the wall, I'd wonder if there was supposed to be a limit to taking care. If charity without boundaries was still charity, or if it became something else. Something that diminished everyone involved. Month 12. A full year. I'd stopped waiting for them to mention moving out. The conversations about just a few more months had dried up, replaced by a comfortable assumption that this was simply how things were now. Vanessa had fully settled into treating my home like a free hotel. She'd even started rearranging things, moving my throw pillows, reorganizing my spice rack, suggesting I declutter by getting rid of Miguel's chair. It's just taking up so much space, Rita, and honestly, it's kind of depressing having this old thing in here. It was my husband's chair, I said quietly. I know, and I'm sorry for your loss, but it's been 16 years. Don't you think it's time to move forward? I didn't answer. I just walked to my bedroom and closed the door. That night, I lit an extra candle at Miguel's altar. I'm trying, I whispered to his photograph. I'm really trying to do the right thing. His face looked back at me. Forever 58, forever frozen in that moment when cancer hadn't yet taken his appetite, his energy, his laugh. I remembered how he'd always known when to be soft and when to be firm, how he'd taught the kids that respect wasn't the same as being a doormat, how he'd once told Tommy, after a friend took advantage of his kindness, "Mijo, Jesus said, turn the other cheek. He didn't say let people use your face as a punching bag." I missed his wisdom. I missed his clarity. I missed having someone to tell me I wasn't being selfish for wanting my own space back. Month 15 brought a shift in Vanessa's attitude. She'd gotten bolder, more comfortable, as if my patience had erased any sense of gratitude. She stopped saying thank you when I cooked, stopped acknowledging when I cleaned up after her friends, started making little comments. You know, Rita, you really should update your wardrobe. Those cardigans are so dated. Rita, do you have to listen to the news so loud? Some of us are trying to work. Rita, could you maybe not make fish? The smell lingers and it's kind of gross. Daniel never heard these comments. They only happened when he wasn't around, delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And I never mentioned them to him because why? He was already carrying so much. His marriage was clearly strained. His pride was wounded. He was working himself to exhaustion trying to rebuild. What good would it do to add my complaints to his burden? So I absorbed them. I changed my clothes, lowered my volume, stopped making Pescado. I made myself smaller and smaller, trying to fit into the corners of my own life. Month 18, September. The heat had finally broken, and the evenings were pleasant enough to sit outside. I'd taken to spending my afternoons in the backyard, reading library books and watching the cottonwoods prepare for autumn. It was my small refuge, my pocket of peace. Until that Thursday. I was inside making iced tea when I heard voices by the fence. I recognized Vanessa's laugh immediately, that sharp, performative sound, and Linda Morrison's voice, lower but equally distinct. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The kitchen window was open. Sound carries in the desert air, especially in the early evening when the neighborhood is quiet. "So you're still here?" Linda was asking. "God, yes." Vanessa's voice dripped with exasperation. "It's like purgatory. I mean, Rita's nice enough, I guess, but honestly, Linda, she's just dead weight. Completely useless." I froze, tea pitcher in hand. "All she does is shuffle around the house like a ghost," Vanessa continued. "It's depressing. And she's so stuck in her ways. Everything has to be done how she's always done it. The woman still writes checks at the grocery store. Checks! In 2024. Linda murmured something I couldn't hear. "Oh, Daniel won't say it, but I know he feels the same way. She's his mother, so he's stuck being nice. But me? I'm counting the days until we can finally leave this place. It's suffocating, I swear. Living here has aged me 5 years." More murmuring from Linda. "I know, right? And the worst part is she acts like she's doing us this huge favor, when really, what else does she have going on? She's retired, alone, no hobbies except church and watching game shows. At least having us here gives her life some purpose." That laugh again, sharp as glass. I set down the pitcher very carefully. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought I'd be shaking, but instead I felt something else entirely. Clarity. Cold, clean clarity. I walked to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. Miguel's photo watched me from the dresser. I looked at it for a long moment. "I've been a fool," I said aloud. "Haven't I?" Miguel's photo didn't answer, but I felt the truth settling into my bones anyway. I'd spent 18 months telling myself I was being charitable, that I was being patient, that I was turning the other cheek. But there's a difference between mercy and martyrdom. There's a difference between helping someone in need and letting them drain you dry. There's a difference between Christian charity and Christian doormat. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Robert Martinez, a lawyer who'd gone to school with Daniel. He attended the same mass as me, always sat 3 pews back on the left side. I'd helped his mother when she was sick 2 years ago, bringing over meals, driving her to appointments. "Robert? It's Rita Navarro. I need some legal advice." That evening, I made Daniel's favorite, carne adobada with rice and calabacillas. Vanessa ate silently, scrolling through her phone. Daniel told me about a job he'd gotten, a big remodel in the North Valley that would keep him busy through winter. "That's wonderful, mijo." "Yeah, good money too. We should finally be able to start saving again." Vanessa glanced up. "We'll need first and last month's rent plus deposits, and new furniture. All our stuff is in storage, probably ruined by now." "We'll figure it out," Daniel said, though he sounded tired. I said nothing. I just ate my dinner and listened to them talk about a future that would never happen the way they imagined. After they'd retreated to their room, I sat at the kitchen table with the paperwork Robert had emailed me. A formal notice of termination of housing arrangement. Clear, legal, unambiguous. I read it 3 times, making sure I understood every word. Then I called the moving company Robert had recommended. "I need assistance with a residential eviction," I said calmly. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. The woman on the phone took down my information, explained the process, quoted me a price. I gave her my credit card number without hesitation. When I finally went to bed, I slept better than I had in months. The moving truck arrived at exactly 8 rows a.m. I'd been up since 5, as usual. Made coffee, lit a candle at Miguel's altar. Said a prayer. Not for strength or courage, but for peace, for clarity, for the wisdom to know that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is establish a boundary. The diesel engine rumbled to life outside, loud enough to wake the whole street. I saw Mrs. Chen peek through her curtains, saw Linda Morrison step out onto her porch, coffee mug in hand, eyes wide. I opened the front door before the movers could knock. "Good morning, gentlemen." The older one, stocky with a gray beard and kind eyes, consulted his clipboard. "Ma'am, we're here regarding 4782 Sage Street. Eviction assistance." "Yes, the guest bedroom, second door on the right down the hallway. You understand we're authorized to supervise the removal of personal belongings? The resident has 2 hours to vacate the premises." "I understand completely." He nodded, gestured to his partner, a younger man, tall and quiet, and they stepped inside. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Panicked. Then Vanessa appeared in the hallway, silk pajamas wrinkled, hair a mess, face still creased from the pillow. What the hell is going on? I turned to face her. For 18 months, I'd looked away, looked down, made myself small. Not anymore. "Good morning, Vanessa. These gentlemen are here to help you pack. You have 2 hours to remove your belongings from my home." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You can't. What are you? Daniel." "Daniel left for work an hour ago. He's framing a house in the North Valley. He won't be back until evening." "This is insane." Her voice pitched higher. "You can't just kick us out." "Actually, I can." I held up the document Robert had prepared. "You've been living here as a guest for 18 months. I'm the sole owner of this property. I'm exercising my legal right to reclaim my space. This is a formal notice of termination. Everything is in order." She stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "But we have nowhere to go." "That's not my problem anymore." The words came out calm, steady, final. They surprised even me. "Rita, please." Her tone shifted, trying for conciliation. "If this is about something I said or did, dead weight," I said quietly. "Useless. Shuffling around like a ghost." "Those were your words, weren't they?" "Yesterday afternoon talking to Linda Morrison by the fence." The color drained from her face. "You thought I didn't hear. You thought I was too old, too deaf, too stupid to notice. But I heard every word. I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said." I stepped closer, not threatening, just present, solid, unmovable. "For 18 months, I've opened my home to you. I've cooked for you, cleaned up after you, given you space and privacy and grace. I never asked for rent, never asked for gratitude. I only asked for basic respect. And you couldn't even give me that." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. Real ones, I thought, though I didn't trust them. "I'm sorry. I was venting. I didn't think—" "That's the problem. You didn't think. You didn't think about how hard I've worked to keep this home, how much I've sacrificed to make room for you, how many times I've bitten my tongue and made myself smaller so you could feel bigger." I shook my head. "I'm done making myself smaller." The movers stood quietly by, professional and patient. The younger one caught my eye and gave me a tiny nod of approval. Vanessa looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route. "Where am I supposed to go? I don't have money for a hotel." "You have 2 hours," I repeated. "I suggest you start packing." "This is cruel. You call yourself a Christian? What about charity? What about the commandment to honor thy mother?" I said softly. "You're not my daughter, Vanessa, but you are married to my son, and that makes you family. I've honored that bond. I've given you everything I had to give. But charity doesn't mean letting someone walk all over you. It doesn't mean accepting abuse in the name of kindness." She had no answer for that. I turned to the movers. "Gentlemen, please help Ms. Chen gather her belongings. Be gentle but thorough. I want this done properly." They nodded and moved down the hallway. I heard the guest room door open. Heard Vanessa follow them, still protesting, her voice growing more frantic. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the table. Through the window, I could see neighbors gathering. Linda Morrison on her porch, Mrs. Chen by her roses, old Mr. Flores from across the street standing in his driveway. News travels fast in a neighborhood like this. Let them watch. Let them see. I wasn't ashamed. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Big day ahead. Love you, Mom. Thanks for everything." I stared at that message for a long time. He didn't know yet. Wouldn't know until he came home to find his wife gone and his mother standing in the doorway, waiting to explain why mercy sometimes looks like closed doors instead of open arms. I typed back, "Love you too, mijo. We need to talk tonight." Then I set down the phone and waited for the storm. The movers worked with the efficiency of men who'd done this many times before. I could hear them in the guest bedroom, the scrape of furniture, the rustle of clothes being pulled from hangers, the occasional murmur of instruction. Vanessa's voice rose and fell in waves of protest, pleading, anger, back to protest again. I sat at my kitchen table and drank my coffee. Waited. At 8:47 a.m., my phone rang. Sophia. Mom, Linda Morrison just texted me. She said there's a moving truck at your house and Vanessa is crying on the front lawn. What's happening? Of course Linda had texted her. That woman had everyone's number, always ready to spread news like wildfire across dry brush. I asked Vanessa to leave. I said simply. Silence. Then, you what? She's been here 18 months without paying a cent, without helping, without showing basic respect. I asked her to leave. Mom, you can't just... Does Daniel know? He will when he gets home from work. This is insane. You're going to destroy their marriage. I took a slow sip of coffee. Their marriage has problems that have nothing to do with me. I'm not destroying anything. I'm reclaiming my home. But where will she go? She's a grown woman, she'll figure it out. Mom. Sophia's voice took on that lecturing tone she'd perfected as a teenager. This isn't like you. You don't just throw people out on the street. I'm not throwing her on the street. I'm giving her 2 hours to pack her things and make arrangements. That's more courtesy than she showed me yesterday when she told Linda Morrison I was dead weight and useless. Another silence. Longer this time. She said that? Word for word. I heard her through the kitchen window. Sophia exhaled slowly. Okay, that's really shitty. But Mom, you should have talked to Daniel first. You should have what? Asked my son's permission to have dignity in my own home? Sophia, I love you, but this is not your decision to make. Or his. He's going to be devastated. Maybe. Or maybe he'll finally see what I've been seeing for 18 months. We hung up shortly after, the conversation ending in that uncomfortable way that meant we'd talk about it again later, when emotions weren't so raw. I set the phone down and noticed my hand was shaking slightly. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from the shock of my own decisiveness. Through the front window, I saw Vanessa on the lawn, phone pressed to her ear, gesticulating wildly. Calling friends, probably. Or her parents. Looking for a rescue that might or might not come. By 9:15, the movers had loaded 3 suitcases, 2 boxes, and a hanging rack of clothes into Vanessa's car. A silver Audi she'd somehow managed to keep through the bankruptcy. She stood by the driver's door, face blotchy from crying, mascara streaked. The older mover came to my door. Ma'am, all personal belongings have been removed. We did a sweep of the room, bathroom, and common areas. Found these in your living room. He held up 2 books and a phone charger. Want us to take them out to her? Please. He nodded, handed the items to his partner. Then he turned back to me, voice low. For what it's worth, ma'am, you handled this with a lot of grace, more than most would. Thank you. After they left, I walked through the house. The guest bedroom looked strange. Empty hangers in the closet, dust outlines where her makeup had sat on the dresser, the faint smell of her perfume still lingering. I opened the window to air it out, then stood there for a moment, looking at the space that would soon be mine again. I heard a car door slam. Through the bedroom window, I watched Vanessa's Audi pull away from the curb. Too fast, tires squealing slightly. Linda Morrison was still on her porch, phone out, probably texting everyone in her contact list. Mrs. Chen had gone inside, but I could see her shadow behind the curtains. Let them talk. Let them judge. I'd spent too many years worrying about what people thought. I went to Miguel's altar and lit a fresh candle. I think you'd be proud, I told his photograph. Or maybe you'd tell me I should have done this 16 months ago. His smile looked back at me, frozen in time, offering no answers. Daniel came home at 6:23 p.m. I'd spent the day cleaning the guest bedroom properly, wiping down surfaces, vacuuming corners, washing the windows, reclaiming the space inch by inch. I'd also made dinner, chicken enchiladas, Spanish rice, refried beans, his favorites. Not as a peace offering, but because he'd need comfort food for what was coming. I heard his truck in the driveway, the engine cutting off, the door slamming, his footsteps on the front porch, the key in the lock. Mom, I'm home. I came out of the kitchen, dish towel in hand. Hi, mijo. How was work? Good, long. We got the framing done on the whole second floor. He set down his lunch cooler, stretched his back. Something smells amazing. Is that He stopped, looked around. Where's Vanessa? Sit down, Daniel. His face changed. What happened? Is she okay? Sit down. He lowered himself onto the couch slowly, like a man approaching a suspicious package. Mom, you're scaring me. I sat in Miguel's chair across from him, folded my hands in my lap. Vanessa moved out this morning. I asked her to leave, and she's gone. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. What? His voice came out strangled. What are you talking about? I hired movers and served her with a notice of termination. She had 2 hours to pack her things. She left around 9:30. Daniel stood up, then sat back down, then stood again. You can't just… Mom, where did she go? I don't know. That's not my responsibility. Not your… He ran his hands through his hair, making it stand up at wild angles. She's my wife. How could you do this without talking to me? Because this isn't about you, Daniel. This is about my home and my boundaries. Your boundaries? His voice rose. We've been living here for 1.5 years. You never said anything, never complained, and now suddenly you just throw her out? I stood up too, meeting his eyes. I never complained because I was trying to be kind, to be patient, to help you both get back on your feet. But kindness has limits, mijo. And Vanessa crossed them. What are you talking about? Yesterday afternoon, I heard her talking to Linda Morrison by the fence. She called me deadweight, useless, said I shuffle around like a ghost, and that living here is suffocating. She said you feel the same way but won't say it because I'm your mother. Daniel's face went pale. She didn't… Mom, she couldn't have… She did. I heard every word. He sank back onto the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Oh God. Daniel, look at me. He didn't. Look at me. Slowly, he raised his head. His eyes were red-rimmed. I have given you both everything I have for 18 months. My space, my peace, my groceries, my patience. I never asked for money. I never asked for much of anything except basic respect. And your wife couldn't even give me that. She's been under a lot of stress. So have you. So have I. Stress doesn't excuse cruelty. But just kicking her out without warning, I gave her 2 hours. That's more warning than she gave me before telling a neighbor I was worthless. Daniel stood up again, pacing now, hands clenched. This is going to destroy everything. Our marriage is already hanging by a thread. If she thinks I was part of this… Were you? What? Did you agree with her? When she said those things about me, did you feel the same way? No, Mom, of course not. Then tell her that. Tell her you won't accept her treating your mother that way. Tell her she needs to take responsibility for her words and her actions. You don't understand how she is. If I confront her about this, she'll… He stopped. She'll what? He looked away. She'll leave me. The confession hung between us, naked and painful. And suddenly I saw my son clearly, not as a child I needed to protect, but as a man who'd been protecting himself from an ugly truth. Daniel. I walked over to him, put my hand on his arm. If your wife will leave you for standing up for your mother, then maybe she should leave. Don't say that. I'm saying it because I love you. Because I've watched you shrink yourself for 18 months, working yourself to exhaustion while she does nothing. I've watched you apologize for things that aren't your fault. I've watched you carry all the weight while she criticizes from the sidelines. You don't know what our marriage is like. I know what I've seen. And what I've seen is a woman who doesn't respect you, doesn't respect me, and doesn't respect this family. She's just scared. She lost everything. So did you. But you didn't turn mean. You didn't start treating people like servants. You worked. You tried. You kept your dignity. He pulled away from me, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the Sandias, painting everything gold and crimson, Miguel's color, the color of hope and endings. Where is she now? He asked quietly. I don't know. She didn't tell me. I need to call her. Daniel, I need to make sure she's okay. He pulled out his phone, dialed, held it to his ear, waited. Voicemail. He tried again. Same result. His jaw tightened. She's ignoring me. Or she's figuring things out. She has no money, Mom. No credit cards that work. Nowhere to go. She has friends. She has parents. She has a car and a phone and 2 working legs. She'll survive. He turned to face me, and for a moment I saw real anger flash across his features. How can you be so cold about this? The question stung more than I expected. Cold? You think I'm being cold? You threw out my wife without even giving me a heads up. I reclaimed my home after 18 months of being treated like furniture. She's family. Family doesn't call you dead weight behind your back. My voice cracked on the last word, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I wouldn't cry. Not now. Daniel, I love you more than anything in this world. But I won't apologize for having boundaries. I won't apologize for expecting basic human decency. And I won't let your wife or anyone else make me feel small in my own home. We stood there in the fading light, mother and son, separated by a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. Finally, Daniel spoke. I need to go find her. Daniel, I need to make sure she's safe. You can hate me for it if you want, but she's my wife. I took vows. And what about your vows to honor your mother? That's not fair. None of this is fair. I felt exhausted suddenly, bone deep, tired. Go. Find your wife. But think about what I said. Think about whether the marriage you're protecting is worth protecting. He grabbed his keys from the hook by the door, paused, turned back. I love you, Mom, but I don't know if I can forgive you for this. The words hit like a physical blow. I watched him leave, heard his truck start, saw the headlights sweep across the living room wall as he backed out of the driveway. Then I was alone. I didn't eat dinner. Couldn't. I put the enchiladas in containers and stored them in the fridge, cleaned the kitchen mechanically, my hands moving through familiar motions while my mind churned. Maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe I should have talked to Daniel first, found a gentler way, given them more warning. But then I remembered Vanessa's laugh, her words. Dead weight. Useless. The casual cruelty of someone who'd never had to worry about whether they had a roof over their head. No. I'd done the right thing. I had to believe that. At 8:15, my phone rang. Tommy. Mom, what the hell is going on? Sophia called me freaking out about Daniel and Vanessa. I explained everything again. The overheard conversation, the eviction, Daniel's reaction. Tommy listened without interrupting, which had always been his way. Process first, react second. When I finished, he said, "Good for you." What? Good for you. About damn time someone stood up to her. Tommy. Mom, I've been biting my tongue about Vanessa for 3 years. She's toxic. She treats Daniel like a wallet and you like hired help. I'm glad you kicked her out. Should have done it 16 months ago. Hearing my own earlier thought echoed back to me made me laugh. A short, surprised bark of sound. Your sister thinks I'm destroying their marriage. Their marriage was already destroyed. Sophia just doesn't want to see it because she's got some fantasy about perfect families. He paused. How are you doing? Really? The simple question, asked with genuine care, cracked something open inside me. I'm okay, tired, wondering if I did the right thing. You did. Daniel's angry with me. He'll get over it. And if he doesn't, that's on him, not you. Mom, you've given everything to everyone your whole life. Dad, us kids, your grandkids, random people at church who need meals or rides or someone to listen. When do you get to take care of yourself? I didn't have an answer for that. I'm proud of you, Tommy said. Dad would be too. After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room for a long time, looking at Miguel's photo by the candlelight. Proud. Would he be proud? Or would he say I should have been more patient, more forgiving, more like Mary accepting whatever cross was laid on her shoulders? But Mary said yes to God, not to people who treated her like garbage. I went to bed early, exhausted but unable to sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face when he said he might not be able to forgive me. Saw Vanessa's tears on the front lawn. Saw the movers carrying boxes while neighbors watched and judged. Around midnight, I heard a text come through. Daniel, found her. She's staying with a friend, safe. Don't know when I'll be back. I read it 3 times. Don't know when I'll be back. Not tomorrow, not this weekend. Don't know. I typed, I'm glad she's safe. I love you. He didn't respond. The next morning, Friday, I woke up to 23 text messages. Sophia had sent 5 more, alternating between concern and frustration. Tommy checked in twice. 3 cousins I barely talked to had somehow heard and wanted the full story. And then there were messages from people in the parish, Father Gonzalez asking if I was okay, 2 women from the Altar Society offering support, 1 man I didn't know well saying he'd heard what happened and thought I'd done the right thing. Small-town parish, small neighborhood. Everyone knew everything. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and scrolled through the messages. Most were supportive. A few were critical. 1 woman wrote, throwing out family, Jesus would weep. I deleted that one without responding. At 9 a.m., someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, expensive-looking clothes, sleek black hair in a professional style. I opened the door with the chain still on. "Can I help you? Mrs. Navarro? I'm Christine Chen, Vanessa's mother." My stomach dropped. "Oh, may I come in? I'd like to talk." Every instinct told me to say no, but I'd been raised to be polite, to hear people out, to turn the other cheek. Old habits die hard. I let her in. Christine Chen looked around my living room with the same barely concealed disdain I'd seen in Vanessa's face. Taking in the worn furniture, the old photographs, the altar with its candles and rosary beads. "Coffee?" I offered, because that's what you do. "No, thank you. I won't be long." She sat on my couch without being invited, crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap. "I want to understand why you threw my daughter out of your home with no warning." There was warning. 2 hours to pack. You know what I mean. You never expressed dissatisfaction, never asked them to leave, never gave any indication you wanted them gone. I sat in Miguel's chair. "Your daughter called me dead weight and useless. She told a neighbor that living here was suffocating and that I had no purpose except to serve her needs." I heard every word. Christine's expression didn't change. Vanessa was venting. People say things they don't mean when they're stressed. She meant it. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because she's been treating me like a servant for 18 months. Because she's never once said thank you for anything I've done. Because she's used my home, my food, my electricity, my patience, and given nothing back except contempt. They were in a difficult situation, so they could have shown gratitude. They could have helped. Daniel worked himself half to death while your daughter sat in my backyard taking selfies and complaining about how hard her life was." Christine's jaw tightened. "My daughter is a professional. She was networking, building her brand. Your daughter is 32 years old and doesn't know how to wash a dish." Silence. Christine stared at me with eyes exactly like Vanessa's. Cold, calculating, used to getting their way. "Mrs. Navarro, let me be direct. I think you've behaved abominably. Regardless of what Vanessa may or may not have said, you don't throw family out on the street. You talk to them. You work through problems. You don't call movers and execute an eviction like you're running a business. This is my home. Not a business, not a charity. My home. A home you offered to them. For 3 months, not 18. You never told them to leave. I shouldn't have to. They're adults. They should have had the decency to recognize when they'd overstayed." Christine leaned forward. "You've damaged their marriage, potentially destroyed it. I hope you can live with that. Their marriage was damaged long before yesterday. And that's not my responsibility. Daniel is your son. Exactly. My son. Who I love. Who I've watched become a shadow of himself trying to please a woman who treats him like an ATM machine." I stood up. "Ms. Chen, I think it's time for you to leave. We're not finished." "Yes, we are. Your daughter is an adult. She made choices that had consequences. I'm not going to apologize for having boundaries." Christine stood slowly, smoothing her designer slacks. "You'll regret this. Daniel will never forgive you. You've lost your son over pride. If standing up for myself is pride, then I guess I'm guilty. I can live with that." She walked to the door, then turned back. "You know what the real tragedy is? You could have had a relationship with your grandchildren someday. Now you never will." The barb hit its mark, and she knew it. I felt my chest constrict, but I kept my voice steady. If Vanessa wants to keep me from my grandchildren, that tells me everything I need to know about her character. And yours. Christine left without another word. I watched through the window as she got into a black Mercedes and drove away. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. The weekend passed in a strange, hollow silence. Daniel didn't come home, didn't call, sent one text Saturday morning. "Need space, please respect that." I respected it, even though it killed me. Sunday morning, I went to Mass like always. Walked into San Felipe de Neri with my head high, even though I could feel every eye on me. Sat in my usual pew, 3 rows from the back on the right side. Knelt and prayed for wisdom, for peace, for Daniel's safety and clarity. Father Gonzalez gave a homily about the prodigal son, about forgiveness and welcome and open doors. I wondered if he'd chosen the reading specifically because he'd heard about my situation. But when he caught my eye afterward, his expression was kind, not judgmental. After Mass, several women approached me. "Rita, we heard what happened. Are you okay?" If you need anything, just call. You did the right thing, mija. Don't let anyone tell you different. But Linda Morrison walked past without a word, nose in the air. And I saw 2 other women whispering, glancing my way, shaking their heads. Judgment comes from all directions. I'd have to get used to that. Monday evening, Daniel finally came home. I was in the kitchen making pozole, Miguel's recipe again because it always brought comfort, when I heard his truck. My heart started hammering. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, took a breath, walked to the living room. He came through the door looking like he'd aged 5 years. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped. Hi, mijo. Hey, Mom. We stood there awkwardly, 2 people who'd never had trouble talking suddenly unsure of every word. Are you hungry? I need to tell you something. He cut me off, voice flat. Vanessa and I are separating. My breath caught. Daniel, not because of what you did, because of what I finally saw. He moved to the couch, sat heavily. We spent the weekend talking, or trying to, and every conversation turned into her blaming everyone but herself. Blaming you for being too sensitive, blaming me for not defending her, blaming her parents for not giving us more money. Everyone's fault but hers. I sat across from him, afraid to speak, afraid to break whatever spell was letting him tell the truth. I finally asked her directly if she'd said those things about you. And you know what she did? He laughed, but it was bitter. She said, "So what if I did?" She was being ridiculous, getting all offended over nothing. He looked at me, eyes swimming with tears. She didn't even apologize, Mom. She just doubled down. Oh, mijo. And I realized I've been making excuses for her for years, telling myself she's just stressed, just difficult, just needs time. But the truth is, she's mean, she's selfish, and I don't want to spend my life with someone who treats people, treats you, like that. The tears came then, and I moved to sit beside him, pulling him into a hug like I did when he was small. He cried against my shoulder while I stroked his hair and whispered the things mothers say. It's okay. You're going to be okay. I've got you. When he finally pulled back, wiping his face with his sleeve, he said, I'm sorry I was angry with you. You were right. About all of it. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. You were trying to protect yourself, and I made it about me. That wasn't fair. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the pozole bubble on the stove. Can I stay here? He asked quietly. Just until I figure things out? Of course. This is your home. It always will be. I'll pay rent. I'll help with groceries. I'll do dishes and laundry and whatever you need. I won't be like... He stopped. I won't take advantage. I know you won't. He nodded, exhausted. I think I need to sleep for about 12 hours. Go. Rest. We'll talk more later. He stood, started down the hallway, then turned back. Mom, thank you for having boundaries, for showing me what self-respect looks like. I forgot somewhere along the way. After he went to his old bedroom, the one that had been his as a teenager, still with his football trophies on the shelf, I sat at the kitchen table and cried. Not from sadness, from relief, from the bone-deep exhaustion of a battle finally over. I'd lost my daughter-in-law, gained back my son, and reclaimed my home. The math felt right. The first week after Daniel moved back in felt like learning to walk again after a long illness. We were careful with each other, overly polite, speaking in soft voices, navigating around the raw wounds that hadn't yet begun to heal. He kept his promise, paid me $600 for rent on Tuesday, insisted on buying groceries Thursday evening, did his own laundry without being asked. The first time I came home from morning mass to find him washing dishes at the sink, I almost cried. Not because of the dishes themselves, but because of what they represented. Respect, reciprocity, the acknowledgement that we were 2 adults sharing space, not a martyr and her burden. You don't have to do that, mijo, I said, though I didn't mean it. He glanced over his shoulder, hands sudsy. Yeah, Mom, I do. We didn't talk about Vanessa much those first days. The wound was too fresh, the shame too close to the surface. But I'd see him sometimes, staring at his phone with an expression I couldn't quite read. Longing, regret, relief, probably all 3 at once. On Wednesday evening, as we sat at the kitchen table eating the green chili chicken stew I'd made, Daniel finally brought her up. She's filing for divorce, he said, voice carefully neutral. Her lawyer sent the papers to my work. I set down my spoon. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved, and guilty about feeling relieved. He rubbed his face. Is that terrible? It's human. Her mother called me yesterday, said I was abandoning Vanessa in her time of need, that I was just like you, cold and selfish. The words stung, but I kept my expression steady. And what did you say? I told her that Vanessa is an adult who made her own choices, and those choices have consequences. Then I hung up. He looked at me, something like wonder in his eyes. Mom, I've never hung up on anyone in my life, but it felt good. Like I was finally allowed to protect myself. You are allowed. You've always been allowed. I know that now. We ate in companionable silence for a while. Then Daniel said, I've been thinking about why I stayed with her so long. Why I kept making excuses. You loved her. Maybe. Or maybe I just loved the idea of her. The successful, confident woman who chose me. It felt like winning something. He shook his head. But love isn't supposed to make you small, is it? It's not supposed to feel like you're constantly apologizing for existing. I thought about Miguel. How he used to leave me notes in my lunch when he packed his own for work. Little jokes, hearts drawn in the margins, reminders that he was thinking of me. How he'd dance with me in the kitchen even when his back hurt. How he'd made me feel larger, not smaller. No, mijo. Real love makes you more yourself, not less. Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing this. I want that. Someday. When I'm ready. You'll find it. I know you will. By the second week, rhythms had established themselves. Daniel left for work before dawn, came home around 6, and we'd have dinner together. Something we hadn't done in years, not since before Miguel died. He'd tell me about his day, the houses he was building, the guys on his crew. I'd tell him about the parish gossip, the library books I was reading, Mrs. Chen's never-ending battle with gophers in her rose garden. It was simple, peaceful, the kind of ordinary that feels like luxury after months of walking on eggshells. But peace doesn't mean the absence of consequences. The neighborhood still hummed with talk. Linda Morrison continued to avoid me at church, whispering with her circle of friends whenever I passed. I'd catch fragments sometimes. Just threw her out. No warning. Poor Daniel. I learned to let it roll off. What people thought of me wasn't my burden to carry anymore. One Saturday afternoon, I was in the front yard trimming the rose bushes when Mrs. Chen came over, hesitant. Rita, can I talk to you a minute? I straightened up, pruning shears still in hand. Mrs. Chen and I had been neighbors for 23 years, friendly, but not close. She kept to herself mostly, tended her roses, minded her business. Of course. She glanced around, as if checking for eavesdroppers. I wanted to apologize for Vanessa using me as, I don't know what to call it, a prop, I guess, in her complaints about you. You didn't do anything wrong. I didn't defend you either. When she was saying those things, I just stood there. I should have told her it was inappropriate to talk about you that way. I shook my head. You didn't know I was listening. And even if you had said something, it wouldn't have changed who she is. Still, I'm sorry. She paused. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. I've watched you bend over backward for them for months. There's only so much a person should have to take. Thank you. That means more than you know. She smiled, squeezed my hand, and went back to her roses. It was a small moment, but it mattered. Validation from an unexpected source. A reminder that not everyone was judging me. 3 weeks after Vanessa left, Sophia called and asked if she could visit. Of course, I said, though my stomach clenched with anxiety. We hadn't spoken much since the eviction. Just a few terse text exchanges that felt more like obligation than connection. She arrived Sunday afternoon with her husband Marcus and their 2 kids, Emma and Lucas. The house exploded with noise in that way only grandchildren can create. Running feet, excited shouts, demands for cookies and stories and attention. I made lunch while Sophia helped the kids wash their hands. Daniel had gone to Tommy's place for the afternoon, giving us space to talk. Smart boy. After the kids were settled in the backyard with popsicles, Sophia and I sat at the kitchen table. She looked tired, I noticed. New lines around her eyes, gray threads in her dark hair that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Mom, I owe you an apology, she said without preamble. Sophia, no, let me say this. I was wrong. I called you cold and selfish, and I was completely wrong. She twisted her coffee mug. I talked to Daniel. He told me what happened that weekend, what Vanessa said, how she reacted, and I realized I was judging you without knowing the full story. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. I think I was projecting. Marcus and I have been struggling lately. Money stress, kid stress, just life stress. And I've been feeling like I should be able to handle everything without complaining, because that's what you always did. You always held it together. She looked up. But seeing you set a boundary like that, seeing you say enough, it made me realize that holding it together doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Oh, mija. I've been letting my mother-in-law treat me like the help, making passive-aggressive comments about my parenting, my housekeeping, my cooking. And I've just been taking it, because that's what good daughters-in-law do, right? They keep the peace. Sophia, no. Good daughters-in-law maintain respect. For themselves and others. There's a difference. She laughed, but it came out wet with unshed tears. I'm going to have a conversation with her. A real one. Thanks to you. We talked for another hour. Really talked. The way we hadn't in years. About marriage and motherhood and the weight of expectations. About Miguel and how we both missed him in different ways. About Daniel and his divorce and how proud we were that he'd finally stood up for himself. When Sophia left that evening, she hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't have your back. You have it now. That's what matters. A month passed, then 2. Daniel started seeing a therapist, a woman recommended by Father Gonzalez who specialized in divorce recovery and family dynamics. He'd come home from sessions looking wrung out but lighter somehow, like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying for years. She asked me why I thought I had to fix everything, he told me one evening. Why I thought my job was to make Vanessa happy instead of building a partnership where we both contributed to happiness. What did you say? I said I didn't know, but I'm starting to figure it out. He paused. I think I learned it from Dad, how he took care of you, but I misunderstood what that meant. I thought it meant sacrificing everything, absorbing all the stress, never asking for anything back. But that's not what Dad did, was it? No. Your father took care of me, and I took care of him. We were a team. He knew when to be strong and when to let me be strong. He knew that love wasn't about one person doing all the giving. Daniel nodded slowly. I want to learn that. How to be a partner instead of a savior. You will, mijo. You're already halfway there. The divorce moved forward with surprising speed. Vanessa wanted it done, wanted to move on, wanted to erase this chapter of her life. Daniel let her have almost everything, kept only what mattered, let go of the rest. He said it felt like freedom. I didn't hear from Vanessa or her mother again. Sometimes I wondered if she'd learned anything from the experience, if she'd grown or changed or developed even a shred of self-awareness. But mostly I didn't think about her at all. She'd been a storm that passed through, causing damage but eventually moving on. The house was quiet now, peaceful. Mine again. In early December, 3 months after the eviction, I decided to host Christmas at my house for the first time since Miguel died. Sophia and her family would come, Tommy and his girlfriend, Daniel, obviously, and Father Gonzalez, who had no family nearby and always spent holidays alone. I spent days preparing, cleaning every corner, baking bizcochitos and empanaditas, setting up Miguel's old artificial tree that I'd kept in the garage. Daniel helped me hang lights on the front of the house, and we stood back afterward to admire our work. Dad would have done it better, Daniel said with a smile. He would have fallen off the ladder and blamed the ladder. We laughed together, the sound carrying across the cold evening air. Christmas Eve arrived with that particular clarity New Mexico winters bring. Crystalline sky, sharp air, the sandiest dusted with snow. My house filled with people and noise and love, the way it was meant to be filled. Sophia's kids ran through the rooms, hopped up on cookies and excitement. Tommy taught Lucas how to play checkers while Marcus helped me in the kitchen. Father Gonzalez told stories about his childhood in Mexico City, making everyone laugh with his theatrical gestures. And Daniel? Daniel looked lighter than I'd seen him in years. He played with his niece and nephew, joked with his siblings, helped serve dinner without being asked. During grace before the meal, when we all held hands around the table, I felt his squeeze my fingers. A silent thank you. A wordless acknowledgement of how far we'd both come. After dinner, after the dishes were done and the kids were dozing in front of a movie, Father Gonzalez pulled me aside. Rita, I want to tell you something. What you did, setting that boundary, standing up for yourself, that took real courage. People confuse Christian charity with being a doormat, but Jesus had boundaries. He turned over tables in the temple. He called out hypocrisy. He walked away from people who tried to trap him. Mercy doesn't mean accepting abuse. I needed to hear that, Father. Thank you. You've shown your children something important. You've shown them that dignity and compassion can coexist. That's a gift. Later, as people were leaving and I was alone in the kitchen wrapping leftovers, Daniel came in. "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Always." I was thinking about what happened, about Vanessa and the eviction and everything after, and I realized something. He leaned against the counter. "You saved my life. Not in some dramatic way, but in a real way. If you hadn't done what you did, I'd still be there. Still making excuses. Still shrinking myself. Still married to someone who made me feel worthless. Daniel, I'm serious. You showed me what self-respect looks like. You gave me permission to want better. And I know it cost you. People talked. They judged. You lost relationships over it. But you did it anyway. For yourself. And in a way, for me too." I felt tears prick my eyes. I did it because I had to. Because I couldn't keep living that way. I know. But the ripple effects. Mom, they saved me. We hugged then, mother and son, in the warm kitchen with the sounds of family in the next room. And I felt something settle in my chest. A peace I hadn't known I'd been missing. January came, bringing New Year energy and fresh starts. Daniel started dating someone, a teacher he'd met at his therapist's office. Her name was Rachel, and she had kind eyes and a quick laugh. He brought her to Sunday dinner one week, nervous as a teenager, and I liked her immediately. She asked questions. She listened. She helped clear the table without being told. She looked at Daniel like he was someone worth looking at. "She's different," he told me after she left. "She makes me feel seen, like I matter. You do matter, mijo. You always have." I'm starting to believe that. One February afternoon, as I was tending the garden Miguel had planted decades ago, I heard someone call my name. I looked up to see Linda Morrison standing at my fence. "Rita, do you have a minute?" I almost said no. Almost turned back to my work and let her stand there. But something in her posture, shoulders slumped, hands twisted together, made me pause. "What can I do for you, Linda?" I wanted to apologize. For how I've treated you. For the gossip, the judgment, all of it. She wouldn't meet my eyes. My daughter just went through something similar. Her husband's mother was living with them, and it got bad. Really bad. And when my daughter finally asked her to leave, I supported her completely. Didn't even question it. And then I realized, I crucified you for doing the exact same thing. People judge what they don't understand. That's generous of you. I was cruel. I'm sorry. I nodded slowly. I accept your apology. She looked relieved, started to turn away, then stopped. For what it's worth, I saw Daniel at the grocery store last week, with his new girlfriend. He looked happy, really happy. I think you gave him that. After she left, I knelt back down in the dirt and finished planting the new rose bush I'd bought, a variety called Resurrection, with blooms that went from deep red to soft pink. I'd seen it at the nursery and couldn't resist the symbolism: death and rebirth, endings and beginnings, the cycle that defines all our lives. Spring arrived with its usual fanfare, cottonwoods leafing out, Chile roasting season beginning, the balloon fiesta planning committee putting up signs around town. The house settled into its new rhythm. Daniel in his old room, working hard, saving money, building a future. Me in my space, reclaimed and peaceful, finally comfortable in my own skin. Some mornings I'd sit at the kitchen table with my coffee, watching the sunrise paint the sandias, and I'd think about that day in September when I heard Vanessa's voice through the window. How that moment of clarity had changed everything. How one decision, one boundary, had rippled out and transformed multiple lives. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled things differently. I tell them no, not for a second. Because I learned something important in those 18 months. There's a difference between generosity and self-erasure, between kindness and doormat, between turning the other cheek and letting someone use your face as a punching bag. I learned that mercy doesn't mean accepting abuse, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting boundaries. That love, real love, requires respect from all parties, not just sacrifice from one. Miguel used to say that faith without works is dead. But I'd add, works without boundaries is martyrdom. And God doesn't call us to be martyrs in our own homes. On a Sunday in late March, after Mass, I lit a candle at Miguel's altar. The house was quiet. Daniel had gone hiking with Rachel, and I had the afternoon to myself. I did okay, didn't I? I asked his photograph. With everything. The candle flickered. The house creaked in that familiar way old houses do, and I felt, for the first time in years, completely at peace. I'd lost a daughter-in-law I'd never really had, gained back a son who'd been slowly disappearing, lost some friendships that were probably never that deep anyway, gained self-respect that I'd forgotten I was allowed to have. The math still felt right. That evening, Daniel came home sunburned and happy, full of stories about the trails he and Rachel had hiked. We made dinner together. His new thing was trying to cook, and he was getting pretty good at it. He made chicken fajitas while I prepared rice and beans, and we moved around the kitchen like dancers who'd learned each other's steps. "Mom," he said as we sat down to eat, "I found a house I want to look at. 2-bedroom, great neighborhood, good price. I think I'm ready." My heart squeezed, joy and sadness braided together. "That's wonderful, mijo. I'll still come over for Sunday dinners, if that's okay." "It's more than okay. It's mandatory." He grinned. "Rachel wants to learn how to make your pozole. Think you could teach her?" "I'd love to." We ate and talked and laughed, and through the window I could see the last light fading behind the mountains, that particular orange gold Miguel had always loved. The color of hope, the color of new beginnings. In May, Daniel moved into his new house. Rachel helped him unpack while Sophia and Tommy and I brought over food and supplies. It was a small house, pure 200 square feet of possibility, but Daniel looked at it like it was a palace. "My own place," he kept saying. "I can't believe it's mine." "You earned it," I told him. "Every bit of it." After everyone left and it was just Daniel and me standing in his empty living room surrounded by boxes, he turned to me. "None of this would have happened if you hadn't done what you did. If you hadn't shown me it was okay to want better. You did the hard work, Daniel. I just opened a door. You did more than that. You gave me permission to walk through it." We hugged, and I felt the full weight of motherhood in that moment. The fear, the pride, the hope, the letting go. He was going to be fine. Better than fine. He was going to be happy. Summer settled over Albuquerque with its usual intensity. Temperatures pushing 100, monsoons rolling through in the afternoons, the smell of roasting green chile permeating the air. My house felt bigger with just me in it, but bigger in a good way. Spacious instead of lonely. I started volunteering more at church, helping with the food bank, teaching ESL classes to recent immigrants, visiting homebound parishioners. I joined a book club at the library, took a watercolor class at the senior center, rediscovered parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. One evening in July, I was sitting on my back patio watching the sunset when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. "Hello? Rita?" A woman's voice, hesitant, familiar, but not. "It's Vanessa." My whole body went still. "Oh, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I don't blame you. But I've been in therapy, and my therapist suggested I reach out to make amends, if you're willing to hear them." I took a slow breath. "I'm listening. I was horrible to you. Ungrateful, entitled, cruel. You gave me everything, and I repaid you by treating you like you were nothing. I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry." She paused. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. Thank you for saying that. How's Daniel? He's good, happy, moved into his own place, dating someone who treats him well. I'm glad." Her voice caught. I hope someday he can forgive me too. That's between you and him. I know." Another pause. "I won't bother you again. I just needed to say this. Thank you, Rita, for everything. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see what I had." After we hung up, I sat in the fading light, processing. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, triumphant. But mostly I just felt sad. For Vanessa, for the life she'd wasted, for the lessons she'd learned the hardest way possible. But that sadness wasn't mine to carry. I'd done my part. The rest was up to her. In August, on what would have been my 53rd wedding anniversary with Miguel, I drove to Santa Barbara Cemetery and sat by his grave. Brought flowers, carnations, his favorite. Talked to him the way I always did, updating him on the kids, the grandkids, the house. "I think I finally understand what you tried to teach me," I said to the headstone. "About balance. About knowing when to give and when to protect yourself. It took me a while, but I got there." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of sage and creosote. Somewhere nearby, a mourning dove called. "I miss you. Every day. But I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm happy." And as I said it, I realized it was true. September arrived, marking 1 year since the day I'd heard Vanessa's voice through the kitchen window. 1 year since the moving truck. 1 year since everything changed. Daniel and Rachel came over for Sunday dinner. Sophia and her family joined us. Tommy brought his girlfriend, who he was planning to propose to next month. Father Gonzalez blessed the meal. Mrs. Chen brought over a pie she'd made from her own apples. My table was full. My house was full. My heart was full. After everyone left and I was cleaning up, Daniel lingered. "You know what today is?" he asked. "I know. A year ago, my life was falling apart, and you were losing yourself trying to hold everyone else together." He dried a plate I'd just washed. "Look at us now." "Look at us now," I echoed. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Then Daniel hugged me goodnight and headed home to his own house, his own life, his own future. I turned off the lights, locked the doors, and stood in my quiet living room. Miguel's chair still sat in the corner, worn and familiar. His photo still watched from the altar, candlelight dancing across his face. "We did it," I whispered. "We raised good kids." And I found my way back to myself. I'd been dead weight once, or at least that's what someone had called me. Useless, a burden, a ghost shuffling through my own life. But I wasn't any of those things. I never had been. I was Rita Navarro, 74 years old, widow, mother, grandmother, friend, a woman who'd learned the hardest lesson of all, that loving others starts with loving yourself enough to demand respect, that boundaries aren't walls, they're foundations, that sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is say no. I went to bed that night with no regrets, no what-ifs, no looking back, just gratitude for the hard choices that had led to this peace, this freedom, this life that was finally, completely mine. And when I woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through my window and the smell of coffee brewing and the mountains painting themselves gold in the distance, I smiled, because I'd learned to stop carrying weight that wasn't mine to carry, and I'd never felt lighter. The end. My daughter-in-law, who lived in my house without paying a cent, told the neighbors I was dead weight and useless. I just smiled, and the next day she woke up to the moving truck parked at the door and was in shock.